Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I have a video for you about French words that don't have any equivalent word in English, meaning there's a word in French and we don't have one word in English that means exactly the same thing. So when we have to translate it, we need more than one word, multiple words. So some would call these words untranslatable, but I take offense to that because you can always translate it if you use more words. But anyway, these words where one language has a word for something and another language doesn't, these are oftentimes when words got borrowed from the first language into the second one. So the second language gets a new word now. And that's a lot of, yeah, that's a lot of times what happens if you have bilinguals who have a good word for one language in one language for something and want to bring it into another language. Well, they can if enough of them all do at the same time. And so I want to start off this little list of French words with no English equivalent with two words that as an English speaker you probably already know because these are words that we already brought into English and borrowed from French because we didn't have a word that means exactly the same thing. So the first one I'm talking about is seek, right? We've had this word seek brought into English over 150 years ago and have been using it ever since because it means cool and stylish and fashionable and, just plain chic. Um, there's a lot more emphasis on style than just when we use the word cool alone. And speaking of the word cool, um, did you know that France borrowed that word from English? So now English and French both have chic and cool, which in French, of course, cool, but same thing. And I think that's pretty beneficial to both languages to be able to say a word. So now we have two concepts that we can say very succinctly. Another word that we brought into English from French because we didn't have one word meaning exactly the same thing is voila. And of course, if you've seen the video where I'm talking about how to spice up your English with those little je ne sais quoi, here you probably remember the word seek and hear the word voila. And I promise all the other words are going to be new, but this one, of course, can mean in French anything from there it is, or here you go, to finally. And so we have started borrowing this into English, especially if you have ever seen a magician doing a magic trick. If they want to direct your attention to somewhere on stage, they might say, voila, like there it is. And that's why they always say it for the big reveal in the trick. Well, they often say it for the big reveal. Here you go, here's the money. Anyway, and so I mean, here's the bunny. And so we can use that in English too. Like, let's say we've been searching around for a remote control or something and can't find it, and we finally see it. Oh, voila! Or even we made a cake. We want to put to present it to people. We can just say, "Look at the cake I made! Voila!" And so, like I said. Uh, the other words are new ones. The other words on this list are ones we haven't already borrowed into English, so we still have no one word in English to express what any of these words do in French, but these are words where I see a big potential for maybe English could borrow them from French to, expand our vocabulary a little bit. And the first one is retrouvailles. And yes, there's an S on the end of it, and we never pronounce S's at the ends of words in French, or almost never. But that's just to say that in French, this word is grammatically plural. So we always treat it as plural instead of singular. But what's important about it is the meaning. We don't have an exact one in English, meaning the same thing because this is the feelings of happiness and relief, and contentment, um, that you're feeling at the moment when you and a loved one or multiple loved ones, who haven't seen each other in a long, long time, reunite. And so the word reunion sort of gets us halfway there in English, reunion, but it's really the word retrouvailles, yeah, puts a lot more emphasis on, yeah, the feelings. And this could be, like the one picture with maybe lovers who haven't seen each other in a very long time, let's say long distance relationship kind of deal, or it could be at a family reunion. We might feel stuff like that, retrouvailles de famille, um, family reunions. And so that comes with the feeling. So if you think of the feeling that you get when you haven't seen somebody that you really love forever, and then you're with them again, that right there is retrouvailles. And so that would be a cool word for us to just bring into English. Um, if we can manage to pronounce it at least. And so, what would be another fun word to bring into English because we don't have any word that means the same thing? Capote. And this, okay, let me put it this way. The picture of Bill Clinton is there for a reason. If you remember, he was in trouble. Well, I think he was campaigning or maybe just being president at the time. That guy got in a lot of trouble as president when people accuse him of having broken the law, and he's all like, "Oh, I've never broken the law." And then they're like, found out, what about all that marijuana you smoked in Oxford when you were at school in Oxford? And he's all like, "Oh, I smoked, but I did not inhale." That right there is what capote means. It's when you well are smoking without inhaling. And so in English, it takes us a few words to say this, but the French made themselves a verb to express this. This is a regular verb, capoter, um, which is, it's sort of like when you're smoking a cigarette or something else for that matter, uh, and you just pull some smoke into your mouth and hold it into your mouth without pulling it all the way down to your lungs, and then you spit it back out. That right there is capote. And so that to me is funny that French speakers have a word for this. Like if a couple of teenagers are hanging out and one is smoking without inhaling and the other ones want to shame that person for being a poser, tu capote. Um, sort of, yeah. Um, be cool and inhale already. Anyway, so that is capoter. And another word that we have in French, but we don't have in English is sortable, which, as you can see on the screen, is spelled just like the word sortable in English, but it does not mean the same thing. Sortable in French, this is what we say for someone who, if somebody is sortable, can take them out without a fear of embarrassment, right? Is someone that you can bring out in public without being fearful that they'll get you embarrassed or do something ridiculous or terrible. Okay. And that's why I put the word pas, P-A-S, right above it. So we have pas sur table, is because that's how it's most often used in French. Someone who is pas sur table is by definition not sortable. So this is someone you cannot take out. You cannot take that person out in public without fear of embarrassment. And examples of that include, let's say, Well, friends who every time you go out, they have way too much to drink and they either start getting in fights or they can't even walk on the way home. You have to drag them, stuff like that. That kind of friend is not sortable. Or let's say kids who can't behave enough to be quiet and not annoy anybody while they're in public. Those kids are not sortable either. Or let's say, oh, I have the picture of the three cartoon grandpas because, well, that's one example of someone who is not sortable is a grandpa who makes a lot of low-key racist jokes anytime we bring them to a gathering or something, right? You can they're not sortable. And finally, the last picture is a good example of someone who is not sortable. The girl who is on her cell phone, chatting on her cell phone in the movie theater while everybody's trying to watch a movie. She is definitely pas sortable. In other words, not sortable. So I would think it is really good if we bring in this word sortable into English, and maybe even with the pas that comes before it. I don't know. Not up to me alone. Um, and so what else we got as far as interesting words in French where we don't have an equivalent in English? Flâner. This is a verb, flâner, and this is the art of wandering around the city streets with no real particular purpose in mind. And other than just, absorbing the atmosphere and appreciating the moment, that kind of a deal, which right there, that's a little wee bit of French culture that's made its way into the language flâner. Um, in English, we have things that are similar or close, like to stroll or to wander, but none of these really capture the meaning of soaking up the moment and appreciating it for what it is. And that's why I also have two other words, flaneur and flâneuse. These are just the masculine and feminine forms of a noun, meaning a person who might flâner. Um, and flaneur or flâneuse, we could call them a stroller or a wanderer, or the most pejorative way they use it in English, I think a loafer. Oh, you're a good for nothing loafer kind of deal. Flaneur, flaneuse, mostly because they have no purpose. No, they're not trying to actually accomplish anything in particular. But it is a beautiful thing. Flâner and just sort of enjoying the moment, sucking up the atmosphere. And especially this is something that's enjoyable to do, in my opinion, as a tourist when you're in new places. But anyway, this is another one where we don't have the exact same thing in English, but I would like to see us get it eventually. So let's borrow flâner into language too. So what else? Empressement. This is one of my favorite words on the list because, well, empressement, the reason the one picture has the big rock, the big boulder in the road, how we would translate this into English is an unavoidable, unexpected, last minute change of plans. Pretty much. It's all of these. And I love having this word in France, empressement, because if you had an empressement, um, that sort of if you can't make it to somewhere, like you had plans to be at a party and something unavoidable, unexpected came up and you can't go or you're going to be late, you can tell them that you've had an emplacement. And I love that because there's no need to find an excuse or to explain the whole reason or anything like that. It's just, oh, I had an empêchement. Sorry, I can't make it there on time. I'll be an hour late or something like that. And I do love this because it's sort of a little release, you know, it doesn't leave people feeling so guilty. And yeah, that's why and empêchement, this could be lots of sorts of things, whether you're supposed to be at a function and then your child gets sick and you have to take them home and take care of them. Or let's say something comes up at work and you have to work late. Or let's say something prevented you from getting to the airport on time. All of these are good examples of empêchement. Missing a flight, that would be a serious empêchement. But anyway, um, yeah, I like this word very much in French because you don't have to come up with excuses, and you don't have to explain, just en passant. And so this next word, I think, is really a shame that we don't have an equivalent in English because I don't think we even, well, not having an equivalent word means it makes it harder to articulate the concept of it. So dépaysement, the root of this word is pays, P-A-Y-S, the part in the middle, which means country. So dépaysement would be an uncountrying of somebody. Um, and by that, and of course, that's not a real word, and we can't even pretend like it is a real word because nobody would understand what you mean when you say uncountrying. But dépaysement, we could borrow that one in, and to express the feeling of, it's the feeling of strangeness and disorientation that can come from being in a foreign land. Um, It's sort of along the lines of you're feeling kind of like a fish out of water, like you're really not in your own element and whatnot. But it does not it but it does not have the negative connotations of homesickness or being homesick or anything like that. It's actually really positive connotations because it's all about un dépaysement. This is a way for you to expand your horizons, to explore new horizons. And it's a great thing to look forward to if you travel abroad, or if you travel, well, on trips far away from home, on dépaysement. That's when you find new food or new art, or meeting new people that you never would have met before, or seeing beautiful new landscapes or anything like that. All of this, if it's so unfamiliar to you that you're feeling like you're not in Kansas anymore, that's dépaysement. And and it's really not as negative as when Dorothy was all like, "We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto." Um, it's more, well, it's good. It's You're growing, you're expanding, and you're experiencing new things that you would never experience at home. So I find it a shame that we don't have a word for that in English. But of course, we could always borrow the French word and make it our own, just like we did with chic, for instance, or déjà vu, or even cul-de-sac, right? We've done that lots and lots of times, so we could do it again. So anyway, thank you for everybody who watches my videos until the very end, and I appreciate that so much. And please do give this video a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please do. It would really help me out so much. And so I hope you enjoyed all of these little words in French that we don't have in English. And if you guys like them a lot, maybe I can come up with some more. Anyway, so I will start working on my next video around. And so you, until then, see you around next.